thank you for doing this again. Thank you so much. So, what is your name? What do you do? And what year were you born?
Well, thank you for having me, Ariel. My name is Rick Prince. I am a writer, producer, director, and full-time special effects makeup artist for a while, featured on Face Off Season 5. I was born in 1974, which makes me 46 years old.
Okay, cool. So, you are 11 years older than me. So, we actually probably had the same types of toys to play with at one point because I'm born in 85.
I
So,
have definitely seen all of your toys come along as I was aging up and out of toys into BMX, and then shortly thereafter driving at 16. That takes you out of toy playing pretty quickly as a young boy.
so what got you into doing, well, makeup and I'm going to say toys?
The Let's see,
I know it's
what
like,
got me in what got me into toys and makeup.
yeah,
The movies. It was the movies.
that's
Watching as a kid, going and seeing a variety of films. I had a Marine father who raised me as a single dad, awesome man, and we would go to movies that maybe I wasn't age appropriate, but he knew mentally I was able to handle, and it would be exciting for me. If you wait too long, they won't scare you anymore. I've had this wrestling match with some of my friends about my daughter and when she should watch Poltergeist kind of deal. But going to see Predator when I was a kid made me love that. Seeing Alien, Star Wars in '77 as a little fallen asleep kind of 3 or 4 year old, just wanted to be in that world. And the best vehicle into that world as a child was to be able to play in that world with your imagination, with little representations of the characters you just watched in a galaxy far, far away, or that were trying to hide in plain sight because they were robots in disguise.
so I see that you've got Optimus Prime behind you. So my next question is, what was your favorite toy sets that you had?
Sets,
Yeah,
as a like a play village, like the thing that you
I
would
will
play
say
in for the
any
toys.
anything because
Because
like
I
anytime.
didn't have very many sets. My sets would be the tree outside with Gung Ho, the little action figure climbing on the GI Joe guy climbing on the tree. I got Gung Ho because Gung Ho was a Marine, looked like my dad. Um, but the play sets, I think I had, and I was bummed about part of it too. I did have the GI Joe base, so it was this silver kind of headquarters, GI Joe headquarters. You could pull the truck in. There's little places for your GI Joes to stand and look out. It was just a plastic wall,
Oh yeah.
basically, that like a little guard wall, and it had the logos on it and stuff. It's GI Joe headquarters, and it was something I think you had to mail in to collect the things on the back or whatever. Definitely, the Cobra Command Center was, because on the photos I was looking so forward to this cool. All the bad guy stuff to me has always been cooler. Cobra's tanks were always cooler than GI Joe's. The Cobra Hiss is this big, neat-looking, forward-shaped black future tank, and GI Joe's tank was just a regular Abrams tank, which is an impressive vehicle, but wasn't as cool. So the bad guy stuff to me was always cooler. So here was this big, cool Cobra Command Center with these big spiky things, and I ordered to get it in the mail, and it's cardboard. It's just pressed, cut out, two-dimensional, but it looked like it was 3D, but it was a 2D, two
Oh yeah.
pieces that look. So I was very bummed about that one when it came in the mail in a small flat box I had to assemble. I was like, oh, this is cardboard.
I have
It's
to
not
work.
as cool as the GI Joe one. The GI Joe one is cool and it's plastic, but
Yeah. No wonder why I don't
uh,
see that one now.
that's the only command center. My cousin James, who still deals in toys, had the 8 foot or whatever, 6 foot, whatever it was. It was longer than we were. GI Joe um, aircraft carrier.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
I've
it was big enough that the big airplane that I had would go on it no problem.
I've seen a
It took up his whole room.
yeah, I've seen a few GI Joe sets. I've sold a couple of the pieces, but I didn't know because that was a little bit before me. But man, I
That was the
didn't know they were
biggest
that big.
toy I've ever seen.
Yes.
Because it wasn't to scale. It needed to be bigger than that to be, but it was big enough for the big
Oh
airplane that
yeah.
was the large toy to go on the deck of, and you could put 2 or 3 of those planes on there, and just that scale of toy. And it was like we were talking about before, just ridiculous. How did anybody afford that? But that
Yeah.
was like the thing you save all year to get or whatever. That just give me one toy, mom, please, dad, whatever it was.
Yep.
And that's what he had. It was
Wow.
awesome, but I never had a big play set. My play sets were outside in the yard, in the dirt, making driveway stuff for Hot Wheels with your fingers carving roads out. The drainage ditch where the overflow creek water would go through, so Zartan's boat could have a place to drive. Like,
See, now that's cool.
yeah, I didn't have many play sets. Castle Grayskull, that would be my favorite.
I take it Transformers
So,
one of your favorites.
Transformers to me was one of the best growing up. This is my OG original Optimus from '84. Most of these, like I said, I lost almost all my original toys to a fire. So I've had to reacquire original versions of those same toys over the years. So this isn't my Optimus Prime necessarily, because mine is a hunk of plastic and metal that's all mushed and flat and burnt. But this one was just, it's a toy as a kid that within a few seconds you could make go from, a truck to a robot. How cool is that? Back and forth, and you could show your friends. And a lot of times you would take a lot of time sitting there. You would just be sitting here transforming your toy. But back in the day when they made them originally, they were pretty straightforward. Look very much like the iconic creatures in the show, characters that you loved. And some of them were almost to scale. You could have Soundwave. He was my favorite on screen. That face, the voice. You talk about iconic. Peter Cullen, who I did get a chance to meet in person out at BotCon in Pasadena or whatever it was a couple of years back. I got to sit right next to Peter Cullen.
That's awesome.
The voice of Optimus Prime. And this is one of my treasured pieces. This is the anniversary edition of the Optimus figure. This is an awesome toy just in general, because if you look, you can press this little button, and on the back of his head, you can make the Optimus talk. His little voice mouthpiece moves.
That's awesome.
You can say, let's see. My name is Optimus Prime.
Dude, I absolutely
and this is metal. Most of this is metal, die cast. This is heavy as hell. Like,
wow.
This is a fantastic piece. A buddy of mine, Danny Lamore, got this for me as a gift because he knows how much I love Transformers. And this is just the coolest version of that toy that, in my opinion, has been made so far. And it's got rubber wheels. It's, standable, posable. You can do kind of whatever with it. If you open the chest, inside is the Matrix of Leadership. Like, it's one of the coolest toys.
I'm gonna have to look that one up, because I actually really love Optimus. And Peter Cullen, he was actually, I think, at the convention that I met you at, but you were far back. He was on the other side of it. See, that is
Matrix
awesome.
of Leadership inside. It comes out too. It's a removable piece. You can take it out and hold it in his hand. His fingers are articulated, so you can pose, and he can make him like point at a thing. His thumb goes down. Like,
that is awesome.
It's just a very, very articulated figure. It's big to scale. Like if you put him up next to like Wheeljack here, some of the other figures, he's big like he's supposed to be. Yeah, it's a great figure. If you do have Transformers, it's the one that makes Optimus feel to scale over them, kind of like he should be. You have the back, and as a play set, you talk about this was its own play set, because it opens up and you have Teletran 1 and Wheelie and all of the kind of components. Like, this was almost its own little play set in the one toy. So Optimus, the voice of Optimus, Peter Cullen, bringing that character to life, was one that you felt like the regal respect for as a toy. So
Oh yeah,
that's definitely one that I keep around. But you get the offshoots too, like RC,
that's so cute.
especially like this is my daughter's. Like we've got a couple of toys that were introductory because they did make girl toys, as it were. I mean, to me, a child is a child, and the Transformer is a. It may be geared toward boys, but
Boys
it's
play
a
with.
engineering kind of mechanical reward that you get from being able to correctly go from one form to another, and that's universal for a boy or a girl.
Yes.
But they did at least make figures to cater to the little girl audience eventually, not in the main line, but eventually. And then closing out the Transformer kind of like masterpiece ones, this would be Devastator. On screen, one of my favorite because he's a combiner. He's 5 different toys. Each leg is a figure. He's very much like Voltron,
Okay.
if you think about it.
I'm like, because I started looking. Now that's the one from the 80s, or is that a?
This is the one from the 80s. This is
Okay,
one of
I
those
do. I started
super
looking.
expensive for all the pieces and
Yeah,
all that. But
I started looking up some of the Transformers because I was like, all I knew is Optimus, and I wound up finding one at a thrift store. I found oh gosh, I can't even think of his name. Give me a second because I'm just gonna grab it because I can't think
there
of.
you go.
So this is the one that I have, and I forget it's Magnus something.
Ultra Magnus. Hell
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
So
he's the one that everybody wanted to get the Matrix of Leadership, but it went to Rodimus Prime, and everybody was like, what? I mean, okay, but what? Here's another little guy. We're talking about different ones that you might actually want to play with. He's just like a little firefighter. I think this is called a Stickfa figure. They're just
wow,
these really posable little guys that, you know, you can kind of do whatever you want. They're just super actiony.
this is
Um,
actually really
they're
cool.
just real generic. He doesn't have a face. He's just got this
Yeah,
little, you know, pop on, pop off parts and pieces. They're Stickfas, I think is the name of them. They just pop together. They're almost like a Lego, but he had his little axe. He's got this like fire hose attachment that you can have.
that's actually really cool because I love firefighters.
Right, same here. I was a firefighter for a while, and so that's where I
Oh
picked it up sometime along the way. But as a figure, he's just one of the coolest. You were talking about a thing that you might take. I think the toy I took around with me the most were Zoids. They were these
yeah,
creatures back in the day that we were wind-up toys that you had to assemble. If you've never heard of Zoid,
I've heard that
Zoid,
name, but I just
they are
enjoy.
plastic self-assembly like construction set pieces or whatever. But when you put all the plastic pieces together with this little wind-up motor in the middle and connected all the things with these little rubber bolts, you just sleeve them on at the end and it would hold all the plastic together. When you got them all put together, it was like a little triceratops or a spider or something. And when you wound it up, the little legs would overlap
I know,
and
yeah,
it would allow for it to walk or
too.
whatever. It was like one of those. And they ranged from these little guys all the way up to these big dragons or whatever.
Oh,
But they were kind of pricey. The good part about it is that on the head you would have this canopy, and inside of that canopy was this little tiny, like super, like little tiny gold man, just pre-posed, and he would sit in the cockpit of this little capsule. It had a little canopy on it, little capsule. That capsule had 2 little pegs on the side, and from that you could build your own little anything with all the parts from the thing. So you'd have this little guy flying, a pilot, and you could build any little spaceship that you wanted. So I would take it and you'd find the coolest gun from the big thing and you'd put it on the side of this little capsule. So you'd have these little, and it was like this big. You could hold it in your hand. And when you would drive in the car, you could hold it up to the window and it would look like it was going at Mach speed. You know, that was the little toy that you could keep with you, and you could put in your pocket, you wouldn't lose it. And if you lost it, it was just the littlest part of the thing. You could get another one for
another one.
$3 that had another canopy and another little man in it or whatever. But
Wow, I may
those were
have to.
probably one of my favorites, Zoids.
It was what toy did you love and that you could do with you couldn't do without, but
Yeah, I think it was the Zoids on that one.
yeah,
I have an affinity. We're talking about, you know, picking up pieces or whatever. my Voltron back would be nice because it was also die cast. But again, it's kind of like Devastator. It combines together, so you can't really play with it too well once it's together, because it's held together, these 5 different pieces, so you can't play with them like you can this big Optimus back here that's built together and you can move him and do whatever. You can't play with them like the K2SO. They look cool, they're neat, and they have a super nostalgic thing. Like just holding Megatron in my hand would take me back to being a kid. Just the feel of that particular plastic little toy. But when you turn him into a robot, he looked weird. The masterpiece Megatron is the one to get, like the cool updated version that they did this whole masterpiece series. That would be the one to get, because he is the good version without the skinny little weird legs, because that folded up to be the grip of the pistol. So he has like very long, wide legs. The pistol grip sticks out at a very unfortunate point of his anatomy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of weird things about him as a robot. But that didn't diminish the character that you had. You had Megatron, and that was the big thing. You had the number one baddie, and that's what I always love. I wanted Cobra Commander. I wanted the bad guy. I wanted Megatron, Skeletor, any of them. Till next time.
All right.
It was good talking with you, Ariel.
You too. Thank you again. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.